it just feels as though we're trying to reassess what it is to be. We're reassessing blackness, but why? Like, why is it a necessity now to do this?
Sure. I mean, I think we have some political markers, some historical markers of obviously our president represents, a moment that is powerful and symbolic and significant historically. I also think we have a passing of the torch generationally from our civil rights leaders, sometimes reluctantly, to the next wave. And we are, I think, in a way that's independent of race, but very much tied to identity. As individuals, we have far more power than we ever have had in history to shape ourselves and to declare ourselves, and not to be reflected by another's idea of us, but to be who we are and paint that picture. Wayne talked about, I went to Occupy Wall Street, I took this picture, I put these images out, he wasn't gonna wait for the news to do it. And that power, that distribution of power, that redistribution and that decentralization, I think affects identity too. And I think you have the constraints on blackness, whether they have been as you are not black enough or you are too black, whatever the case may be, is less applicable in a world where you have not only the knowledge of who you are, but the power to declare and share that with the world.
I mean, we're in a transitional generation that, unlike the generations that existed before us, our parents, our grandparents, we don't have to fight for basic human and civil rights. We don't have to be afraid of our survival on a day-to-day basis, especially when we try to push back against the system. One of the reasons why...
Maybe you don't.
No, we don't. Like, one of the reasons why the help is so offensive to so many people is that we know that if those people had actually spoken to white girls in the real world, had played out, a group of white men would have sat up and killed them. I mean, when Jesse Jackson starts protesting in South Carolina in the 60s, his father's telling him, you are at specific direct risk of death. Like, they will come to this house and kill you. And that's not exactly what we're dealing with nowadays. We're not dealing with the direct threat of death when we push back into the system nowadays.
I just feel like that's a very blanket statement. I mean, we're not dealing with it as ostensibly as we were at one time, but I think there's very much something to say for, like, for instance, the Oscar Grant situation.
Look, we get killed in the street. I mean, Ayanna Jones, Sean Bell. I mean, I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but that.
And I do believe that if we all in this room, decided, like, we're gonna be black together.
Didn't we just do that?
Like, no, and then force. We're gonna be black together and then apply force. Like, consistently in a collected manner about something. They may not bring out the dogs, but they bring out the tasers. So I think that I don't necessarily think that the change is because there's been a difference in blackness as identity, but there's been a difference in what we consider to be our necessity or our emergent issue. Like you said, once upon a time there was a collective, like, just because we're black, we can't do this. Where now it's a lot more hazy. It's like, for some people, it's like, we can't do this because we're in a certain economic position.
Well, that's absolutely right. That racism was very binary. It was very obvious.
It was very black and white.
It was like a bull running down the street. They saw it coming. They're trying to deal with it, and they were able to stand up to it. And part of the gift of the civil rights generation is that we don't have racist laws that we can all identify and go, that law is there to fuck us up. You can't drink from this fountain. Like, that's ridiculous. Racism now is generally much more like foggy, and fungible, it's sort of become more complex, and racism itself become more intelligent.
Well, it's become harder to fight.
Yeah, things happen that we like, I know that's racist, I tell you, you're like, yes, I know. You try to mention to a white person, they're like, maybe you're being more sensitive, and like asking us to prove it in and of itself is racist, but then they're like, well, you have no proof. So then, what are you? You're being racist. Like, oh my God.
I want to challenge a little bit this idea that things were cleaner and binary in the past, because I think we oversimplify sometimes. Especially, I wasn't there, but being in the time, it probably wasn't that clear. If the righteousness felt true for those who were most loud in it. But there are a lot of people like, I'm not sure if all these notes about slow down, be patient.
Well, not necessarily the righteous, just the issue.
Yeah.
Like,
I get
some people just felt like that may not necessarily be an issue they need to really mess with. Like, we don't really need to vote. Come on, like, slow down. I think that's what you're saying.
You know what? It's just soft. It's not my main point. But I think when we say like things were simpler in the past, I think that we just are in a little bit of danger of oversimplifying the challenge that they face when we say that. Oh, you guys had you had a clear objective, not an easy objective. You had a defined enemy that looked like that, and you charged that thing. And I don't know that it was always that. Anyway,
I don't know. I mean, I think in a world of segregation, de facto, the de jure segregation, that it's clear, like, this is the problem. Like, you know, these are the laws that we like. We can't drink there. We can't go through this door. Like, this is ridiculous.
No, and there is, I mean, certainly the doubt that is raised in any black person's mind today, the internal question of why did this happen, and was race a factor, is the sort of overhead process that we have to apply that makes us more tired than other people.
Yes,
you second guess yourself a lot. So
yes, it absolutely does. They talk a lot about stereotypes, correct, and how there's just a lot of extra mental process that you're just trying to. He's just doing Josh is just doing the SAT. You're doing the SAT with this whole other thing of like, well, I don't want to let down the race and let them know that we're not. So, and you're trying to do your best, and it's pushing you to another level. But then you get into this John Henry sort of thing where you have to do all this extra physical and mental work just to do the SAT.
Yeah.